Good job, sir.
Yeah. All right, do we have
Any questions? Yes, sir.
What's your position on Islam in this country?
So thank you for teeing me up. You may know already that I had a press conference this week. And look, here's what I'll tell you. I'm a Christian. I don't hate anybody. I love everybody, and everybody in this state will be protected. I want peace, prosperity, and good things for everybody that lives here. However, as a military guy for 20 plus years and in 2 wars, we were told repeatedly we have to fight them abroad so we don't have to fight them here at home. And then we welcome them here at home. And we see what happens in Minnesota with the rampant tax fraud. The guy, and this is a recurring issue after 9/11. It's not a one-off, it's a pattern. And you see at Old Dominion University, I'll use that one example to not give you the whole laundry list that I mentioned in our press conference that we had here in Tampa last week, is he was supporting terrorism. He was tried and convicted, put in prison, out on early release. He was a naturalized citizen. Why in the world was he out on release in the first place? And why do we not have laws that say if you come into this country and you naturalize and you commit fraud on the taxpayers, or you have terrorist ties and you're convicted of that, and the governor said the same thing, upon conviction you should be denaturalized and deported out of this country. And so I've gone farther than most politicians who say, yeah, we shouldn't have Sharia law. I don't think they know what that even is. But it's a way of them just kind of separating out that there's a problem. Occasionally some people get killed, a school gets shot up, this poor lieutenant colonel got killed, and we shouldn't have that, but let's go on to the next issue. I believe, and this is not a statement of hate, it's a statement of fact and looking over 1,000 years of history, that Islam as a system is not compatible long-term with the American constitutional system or the American way of life. And don't take it from me. Just look over 1,000 years of history, what your eyes and ears and your observation shows you. We just don't mix well. And look, we had good relations. I did when I was over in Desert Storm and in Afghanistan with Muslims. We worked with Muslims, and we should be friends with anybody that wants to be friends with us, and that includes Muslim nations. But together, it's never worked, because while in countries like ours, you can have people of all faiths who come here and live peaceably. The opposite is not true in those Muslim countries where Christians, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists do not live peaceably in those countries. They are ultimately persecuted and even killed or driven out of those countries. And so what this means is we have 500,000 Muslims in Florida today. Dearborn, Tampa is being called the new Dearborn.
Yeah.
And so I'm sounding the alarm bells, because that is what a leader should do. And do I get hit for that? Absolutely. But I've had a lot of people saying, thank you, because you're the first person I've heard it say it out loud, that these two systems of ours are not compatible. And ultimately, the other point to be made is they don't intend to assimilate. No matter what immigrant group you can name, there's always been an assimilation. It doesn't mean you're a Republican, you could be a Democrat or whatever, but there's been assimilation into First Amendment rights, Second Amendment rights, Fourth Amendment rights, the rights to live your life in this world in a way that we call it America. And they do not intend to assimilate, they intend to force us to assimilate to them. And we just have to be honest about it and say stop. So I called for a full ban of immigration from Muslim nations, a denaturalization process for those that commit crimes in our country, to stop. I was a champion for school choice, but school choice is now being used, and it's importing Muslims into our state to teach these Sharia concepts, which are, again, incompatible with the American constitutional system. And so we have to stop that. We have to put steps in place that are legal, and we have to maybe make some court challenges to stop these enclaves that we can see in Europe that are no-go zones, where women are going in, getting raped, attacked, and then the police are afraid to go in these countries in Europe. And this is the neighborhood they grew up in as kids, and it's no longer safe for them. We see it in front of us. Why would we not stop and say, enough? And so I will.
Right on.
Throughout the state of Florida, we've now seen that they're changing tactics and using residents and using other people in the country to now purchase that property. What do you see if you become governor that you should lead the legislature again to do to prevent that from continuing to happen and to strengthen that legislation that you originally were part of?
Well, I think we need federal legislation, to be honest with you, and you're right, because you get 3 tiers down. It's John and Susie, Q, American citizen, and then there's an LLC, and there's some passive investors here and this and that. And basically, the Chinese Communist Party is still buying that land. I got eyes on that bill. The bill was a bit of a mess when I saw it. I tried to fix as much as I could in the last week or so. It was something that the governor correctly was pushing, but it wasn't ready for prime time. And as we finish it off, I mean, it's. I knew what was going to happen because as a lawyer, I just know that that's exactly what they're going to do. What we have to do as a nation is also this. I talked about the green threat. This is the red threat. Charlie Kirk talked about this. He wasn't making it up. People that hate us want to take us out. They want to destroy this country. And sadly, we have people on the left in this country, and President Trump said this as well, who feel the same. And they're willing to partner with some of those people on both sides to see our country, the greatness we've had over 250 years, come down. So it means no Chinese students in any public university in Florida. That's a must. And I say that again, not out of hatred or anything for kids that want to come study, but we've already had the experience when I was in the legislature. Before I became speaker, they were stealing our intellectual property. So they come in, or professors come in, and they're professors, so they don't know. I mean, they don't know any better. Oh yeah, come on in, let's do this cancer research project, or let's do this worse Defense Department project. You're just a nice person that wants to discover new knowledge and with us and do this research, because we're all about the good of the world. And they're taking all that back to China to build weapon systems to kill us one day, or to stop us one day if we need to stop them. And so we have to be proactive. You saw these labs were shut down. They actually had labs of Chinese national doctor growing malaria, HIV. It was the Wuhan lab all over again in this country. And so they figured out through COVID that we can develop this, and next time it may be something that really is gonna wipe us all out. And so we have to be mindful that as much as I want to be on the soccer field with my son, or at gymnastics with my daughter, or at church with my family, we have to know that, and you have to have a leader that, number one, knows about it, number two, cares about it, and is not looking to audition to be, J.D. Vance's vice president or whatever. You've got to have somebody who's on point against these threats, because they're real. There's cybersecurity threats from China. There are the land purchases you're talking about close to our military bases. Here's another thing. When we talk about, and I didn't go through the whole litany of what I'm going to do as governor, I'm happy to do that, but I talk about affordability as a key concern. And one of those is our electric rates. And we talk about how utilities with new power generation are going all in for solar only almost, on a kind of green new scam incentive. We got to please our shareholders who want net, zero carbon, footprint. And the problem is, it fails the 3 tests I want in law. I want the lowest possible cost delivered to your doorstep. Sounds common sense. Domestically sourced in America. It's common sense, and it's got to be reliable. Those seem like such common sense. Like, who would be opposed to that? I could go through all my successes as speaker. There were many of them. That wasn't one of them. I tried to inch that bill out, and I was focused on social media. I was pretty tied down. But man, let me tell you, buddy, that was like I was killing puppies, because the utilities were after it. But think about solar in China. Where do the solar panels come from? China. Where do the batteries to store the power come from? China. And here's what we know, and I've talked to experts, that some of the systems that had been sent over had kill switches. I guess it's called the inverter, that generates the solar to the electric, that inverter, whatever is the system, the way it converts that sun into electricity, actually deep into the mechanics that Chinese had planted before they sold it to us, kill switches. So that if there's a hot war, they can say, lights off. And so, trust me that we have a threat from China. As a former Intel, I was an Intel officer in Afghanistan. I can get you really scared before you leave the room, but you have to have somebody who understands the threat and is not afraid to play footsie with people over, offending somebody. I'm not going to do that if I think it's a real threat to you, your safety and the safety of your family. We're going to keep it safe, we're going to keep it free, and we're going to make Florida affordable.